Hello Chikas, I hope you enjoyed the previous video. So today, I think judging from the title of this video, you already know that we are going a bit deeper. So yeah, this is something that I was very conflicted about sharing, mostly because I haven't told a lot of people about this, and also I think generally sexual abuse is not something that you just talk about and laugh about. So it's a very uncomfortable topic for me, and I'm very nervous. So I am going to consult my notes a lot, because for me to remember everything that I wanted to tell you, I had to write everything down, and it doesn't help that I'm nervous. So yeah, I am gonna consult my notes a lot. So before I dive right into it, I just want to tell you why I decided to tell you this story. So I had to remind myself why I started this channel. And I remember that I wanted to share my experiences with young people who are watching these videos so that they can avoid the same mistakes that I and my peers have made over the years when we were young like them, and also just to encourage people my age and older to remember that, you know, they are not their pain and they are not their past, and for them to just be encouraged to deal with the pains of their past and to be better adults and parents today. And as for parents, I just wanted to encourage them to not repeat the same mistakes that my parents and parents in my community have made over the years. So anyway, in my family, talking about sex has always been a taboo, as most of the black communities. So you would literally get a hiding if the adults in my family heard you talking about anything that has to do with sex. So there was a day when me and my cousin, for example, were playing nearby my mother and my aunts, and they were talking about sex and babies. And I remember, you know, so that they can blind us, they started talking about aeroplanes, you know, they started talking about water and snakes. You know the drill. So as they were talking about that, my cousin went to the house and fetched her biology textbook and came to show them the diagrams in that book to show them that they are lying. And I remember that my aunt chased her around the yard wanting to beat her up because she was teaching us, the younger ones, nonsense. So on that day, that's when I actually learned so that's how I learned how babies are made on that particular day. So you can imagine, if you grow up in an environment like that one, how do you then go about to tell your parent that you have been raped or you have been molested when sex is such a taboo? So anyway, let's get right into the story. So I grew up in a family that loves livestock, and therefore my family always had livestock that they kept in a farm outside of our village, and that's where my grandmother spent most of her time. So when I was young, as a toddler, I loved animals. I think people who know me now and my relationship with animals would be surprised to know that I actually loved animals at some point in my life. So I always spent most of my time in the farm with my grandmother and her servants. I'm sorry for using that word. That's like literally the only word that I can think about. I don't know, farm workers. Yeah, that word. So I spent a lot of time there, and there weren't a lot of kids. So the only person that I could spend a lot of time with was my grandmother's farm work, who was a young boy, like a young man. So when he went to milk the cows or the sheep or whatever, I would always be there. So one day, as per usual, we were going to the kraal so that he can milk I'm not sure actually whether it was the cows or the sheep, but he was milking something. So I went with him, and on our way, he asked me to sleep with him. Oh, I forgot to tell you how old I was. I was 4. So he asked me to sleep with him, and I think naturally I didn't know what that was. I don't even know if I understood what he was saying, or how he said it, or how he phrased it, or anything like that. But in my mind, like, I remember saying yes. I don't even know if that's even accurate or what, but I remember agreeing to that. And yeah, I don't even know if I understood what sex is. I honestly don't know. I was 4. So anyway, we went to the kraal, and he asked me to take off my clothes, which I did. And he tried to sleep with me. I don't even know how to say like the next part without being overly explicit, but he basically tried to put his thing in me and it couldn't fit. So while he was trying and trying, we heard a donkey cart arriving. So my cousins were over for holidays or for a weekend. I honestly don't remember. And when that happened, he asked me to put on my clothes, and I did. And he asked me to not tell anyone about what happened, and I agreed, and I didn't tell anyone because I think I was scared of getting a hiding from my grandmother if I told her, or even if I told my parents. I was scared of getting a hiding. I was scared of telling my cousins because I thought they were gonna laugh at me or something. So it was just a whole lot of things, but I pretty much never told anyone throughout my life. So yeah, so that's what happened. But I remember that after that happened, I couldn't shake the picture of that. I could still see him, like all these years. I could still see that picture very vividly, and it affected me in ways that I never thought anything could affect me. But I still related to it in a very confused way, rather. Like, I just didn't understand what happened, whether it was supposed to happen, whether it was wrong, whether it was right. It was just the confusion that I carried throughout my life. Yeah, so I spent most of my life trying to figure out how old he was, and I would ask like questions to my cousins, and they would always ask me why I'm asking that, and I just couldn't answer that. So one day when I was at my grandmother's house as a teenager, I was at my grandmother's house, and he came over to see my cousin, because I think my older cousin, I think they were friends, and they remained friends even when I was a teen or something. So he came over, and I remember I was sitting, we call it lelapa at home, like it's sort of by the veranda or whatever, the pavement, whatever you call it. So I was sitting there with my cousins, like my female cousins, and he arrived, and I remember being so scared. I remember looking at him and feeling so much fear, and I just couldn't remember. I just couldn't understand why I was so fearful. There was this guy who was standing right in front of me. I mean, if my cousins didn't arrive the moment that they arrived in that farm those many years ago, he could have raped me. And here was my molester. He was standing right before me, and I was scared of him. The same power that he held over me all those many years ago, he still held it right there, right then. And I remember feeling like I need to confront him, but I couldn't because I was scared still. And I feel like I would still want to confront him even today. Like, I think that's something that is very big for me. I feel like I still need to confront him, but not because I'm still angry at him or anything like that. I feel like he needs to know that I know what he did to me, because I feel like when I saw him as a teenager, he was so casual with me. It was like nothing ever happened. And maybe for him, he had forgotten, but I did not forget. And yeah, I just feel like he needs to know that I know what he did to me in case he had forgotten. So, anyway, I think what I want to tell you is that when you are a toddler, it's very difficult to compete with the reasoning of someone who is in their puberty. So it took me understanding that for me to be able to finally forgive myself and to be able to put behind the self-blame for saying yes. What does a 4-year-old know about sex for them to even have consent? When I was growing up, my parents had only one rule. If you get pregnant, then you are going to take care of your child. That was the only rule that they had. They never spoke to me about what sex is or how. They never spoke to me about what gets you pregnant, and that's sex. They never spoke to me about what I should look out for, whether when someone speaks to me in a certain way, it's wrong, or if someone touches me in a certain way that makes me feel uncomfortable, it's wrong. None of that ever happened. All I knew was that sex talk gets you in a whole lot of trouble. And the fact that there was no penetration with the guy was just so confusing as I was growing up thinking about it. But I shed so many tears at thinking about what happened, even though it was just a confusing thing throughout my life. I think it took sexual or sex campaigns rather for me to actually get to a realization that I have been molested as a toddler. And I think this just made me realize how open conversations, open relationship with a parent can come very handy in any young person's life. Because when you are young, you are easily manipulated. You cannot compete with the reasoning of someone who is older than you. I mean, it's in very rare occasions that when you are young, you are able to actually stand that manipulation. I think I started opening up about my sexual abuse history as an adult to a couple of people that I trust, which was not very easy, but it brought me a lot of healing. And I spoke to my mother about a year or two ago. That's when I told her about what happened. And as you could imagine, she was very angry at my perpetrators and very sad that she actually never knew that for her to be there for me during those times. But yeah, that's a topic for another day. So I think if you are going through the most right now and you are probably confused about whether what he said or the fact that he touched you a certain way, if it made you feel uncomfortable, then it was wrong. It probably was wrong. If it didn't feel right, then it was wrong. I think it would not feel uncomfortable if it was right. So I think if you have any sexual abuse history that you haven't dealt with, maybe try to consult someone or speak to someone that you can trust. And I mean, if you are comfortable sharing about it, you can leave a comment in the comment section. I'm not a psychologist, but if you feel like you are able to open up to me and for us to to help each other through this, you can DM me on Facebook or on Instagram. I will answer your message. So yeah, my username is Lorato_Phefo. Is LORATO_PHEFO. So let's have those conversations. Otherwise, you can leave your comments down below. We can engage. And I think as a parent, I hope that this video motivates you to be more open about sex with your child and not to make it such a taboo, so that if your child feels violated, they can actually come to you, because that's very important. Thank you so much for tuning in, and I will see you in the next video.